Minnesota is home to 6 units of the National Park System. We are going to talk about 4 of them in detail in this video, and if I had to sum up the national parks of the land of 10,000 lakes in a few words, I would simply say it's all about rivers and lakes. Minnesota's national park sites are highly reflective of the state's geological past, in which massive glaciers carved and scraped across the landscape and created pockets and depressions that eventually filled with water to become lakes, and the rivers that flow from, to, and between them. Most of the national park sites you will find in Minnesota are centered around one or both of those landscape features, including its flagship Voyageurs National Park. But it's not just the physical geology and scenery preserved at these sites. While these features may be the first things to catch our eye, a shimmer on a lake at dusk, or a riffle in a river on a paddling trip, or the dampening silence of the snow during winter, Minnesota's national park sites are also centered around rich cultural, historical, and recreational experiences as well. These rivers and lakes served as vectors for trade and exploration in times gone by, as highways for cultural transmission, and as liquid backdrops for water-based recreation. So, join me as we explore the national parks of Minnesota. Alright, we're going to go geographically again, as we always do, and we'll start at Grand Portage National Monument, or if you're Canadian, Grand Portage. I'm going to use Portage. I don't actually know which one is correct. Y'all can argue about it down in the comments. Anyway, Grand Portage National Monument is located in far northeastern Minnesota, basically as far to the northeast as you could get in this state. A portion of the park actually touches the Canadian border. Now, for those of you who don't know, a portage or portage is when you have to carry your watercraft, usually like a canoe, around an obstacle in the river, like rapids or rocks or a waterfall or something like that. You get out of the boat, carry the boat around the obstacle, put your boat back in the water, and then carry on with your trip. That is a portage or portage. For this particular park, the portage is referencing and protecting and interpreting the Grand Portage, which was an 8.5-mile path taken around a series of waterfalls and rapids on the Pigeon River as it flows into Lake Superior. The Pigeon River actually defines the border between the US and Canada in this region. On either end of this portage were 2 fur trading depots belonging to the Northwest Company, one on the shores of Lake Superior itself, the other at Fort Charlotte upstream on the Pigeon River. As a major hub in the fur trade, Grand Portage was not only a place of commerce, but a place of cultural transfusion and exchange. Today, Grand Portage National Monument is located on the Grand Portage Reservation and is managed in partnership with the Lake Superior Band of Chippewa Indians. In fact, the band donated a significant amount of the land that would eventually become the monument, and they oversee major roles related to maintenance, interpretation, and resource protection at the monument. The band have strong cultural ties to this area. Long before European traders used the Grand Portage for commercial fur trading, the Ojibwe and other tribes were using it for their own trading and exploration as a link between the Great Lakes and the continental interior. For visitors to the park today, the main point of contact is located in the town of Grand Portage itself on Lake Superior, where you can find a reconstructed fur trading outpost and the fairly newly constructed Grand Portage National Monument Heritage Center. You can also travel along the 8.5-mile Grand Portage Trail itself to the Fort Charlotte area, which has only simple backcountry campsites. Next, we'll head to the Mississippi National River and Recreation Area. This park protects 72 miles of the iconic Mississippi River and cuts right through the heart of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area. Many people probably don't even know that if they've ever visited Minneapolis and done basically any sort of river activity, they've likely visited this unit of the national park system. I'm sure locals know this, but for visitors, this isn't really a traditional sort of national park site. As in, this isn't the type of park where you roll up, pay an entrance fee, and the park is contained within a traditional sort of core area. Instead, because it's focused on the Mississippi River, the park is linear in nature, featuring multiple entrances and access points, and it actually doesn't feature that much NPS-owned land. The Park Service considers this to be a partnership park. We've seen several of these in this series before, where the land ownership is really a hodgepodge of federal, state, local, nonprofit, and private managers. The Park Service's role here is really in an oversight capacity, helping all of these managers work toward the Park Service's overall goal of protecting this river for future generations. Now, despite its name, this unit is not classified as a national recreation area. It officially falls under the National River designation instead, one of 4 in the national park system. And according to the National Park Service, even though the Mississippi is more than 2,300 miles long, the 72 miles of the Mississippi National River and Recreation Area are some of its most dynamic. At the park's northern end, the river is a nice, free-flowing prairie river before it plunges over St. Anthony's Falls and enters a gorge for 8.5 miles, the narrowest along its entire length, before leaving the urban area to become the continent's dominant floodplain river and inland navigable waterway. This river drains basically most of the land area in the entire United States, and this is the only NPS unit entirely dedicated to the Mississippi River. Next, Minnesota is home to 869 miles of the North Country National Scenic Trail, an official unit of the National Park System. I've already covered this trail in detail during the North Dakota episode, so I will direct you over there for further information. In the meantime, we'll move on to Pipestone National Monument, located in the far southwestern portion of the state. This is pretty much the only NPS site in Minnesota that isn't really focused on a river or a lake, although Pipestone Creek does run through the property. Pipestone is more of a prairie park, but more than anything, it is a cultural landscape. It is cultural resources that this park was first protected for back in 1937. This park protects several pipestone quarries used by numerous indigenous tribes throughout their history. Archaeological evidence suggests that quarrying for pipestone has occurred at this site for at least 3,000 years. As the name implies, pipestone was used to carve and construct pipes. Commercial pipe smoking was used by numerous tribes in this area to accompany activities like peace settlements, war preparations, trading, and certain rituals and ceremonies. The cultural significance of pipe making and the quarrying of pipestone was so significant that the quarries here were considered to be neutral territory where any tribe, even if they were in conflict, were allowed to visit them and extract pipestone. Pipestone National Monument is considered to be culturally significant to 23 different federally recognized tribes, and the National Park Service works in partnership with those tribes to allow their members to use the monument for traditional quarrying activities still to this day. Then, Minnesota does have a portion of the St. Croix National Scenic River as well, and I know I'm going to disappoint some of you with this one, but we're going to cover it in the Wisconsin episode instead. The river is the border between the two states, Minnesota and Wisconsin, and you would think the land area would be kind of split because of that, but Wisconsin has the Namaquagan River portion of this park, which means it also has most of the land, so I'll just cover it then. But your disappointment isn't likely to last, because finally we come to the big guy, Voyageurs National Park, Minnesota's only big 63 park. Located in far northern Minnesota, right up against the Canadian border, Voyageurs is basically the quintessential lake park. Even though it's not located on a great lake, Voyageurs is home to 30 different named lakes, countless other smaller lakes, and has more than 500 islands scattered across that watery wilderness. Also, quick spell check here, Voyageurs is spelled Voyageurs, which is in reference to the French-Canadian fur traders who frequently traveled these lands and waters during the heyday of the North American fur trade. They were called Voyageurs, and this park is in reference to them. It should come as no surprise, also, that the main resource being protected here is the absolute abundance of freshwater lakes, islands, streams, creeks, and forests that are the hallmark of this region of Minnesota. The park contains more than 218,000 acres of these standout features. You might also be familiar with the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, another famously lakey protected area that is separate from Voyageurs National Park, and it is part of the Superior National Forest. It's actually the most visited wilderness area in the country, but this is a video about Voyageurs, so we'll stick to the script. Voyageurs saw just under 200,000 visitors last year, which isn't like the least visited national park, but it's certainly not very popular either. It's kind of pretty hard to get to, and to enjoy it, you really have to get out on the water. Rolling up here and doing a few short hikes near the visitor center isn't going to cut it for this park. You're going to miss a lot of what it has to offer, which is the water. The water is the draw here. Luckily, the Park Service runs guided boat tours during the summer and early fall, or you can strike out on your own with a paddling expedition via canoe or kayak or via motorboat. The park is even known for its houseboat facilities, which can be rented through nearby vendors. Also, summer isn't the only time you can come through here. I know I said water is the main attraction, but you can definitely still come in the winter and do some wintertime activities. Even though it gets down to like negative 1,000 degrees, the park is a wonderland when it comes to winter recreation. You can do cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, ice fishing. You can even drive across the frozen lakes if you want to. Also, the park is very well known for being able to see the northern lights. And there you have it, folks. Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, whose national parks certainly live up to that reputation. Perhaps no state in the country has national park sites that best fit its reputation more than Minnesota. I don't know, what do you think? How many of these parks have you been to, and which one was your favorite? Let me know it all down in the comments below. And as always, direct support on Patreon is always appreciated. I rely a lot on fan funding to keep cranking out these videos for you guys, especially considering I talk about national parks and public lands in a way that is a little bit different and a little bit more niche than you typically see on this website. I don't do hiking guides, travel vlogs, top 10s, anything like that. Just pure, unadulterated educational videos. So yeah, I appreciate your support over on Patreon and here and everywhere. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.